All right, guys, welcome back to Revive School. Here we are, yes, at the end of the week. Kevin, all we've done is talk about Nehemiah. Yep. Nehemiah 11, lesson 130. And I think, I don't know, I always have lots of favorite paintings. But like, I'm from northern Indiana, and this one just speaks to my heart. It's kind of like that. In northern Indiana, you have the 52 days. Here in Revive, Indiana, people they prayed for revival and they pursued it. And we saw the closest thing that our ministry has seen over the course of 11 years to seeing a city radically impacted by the gospel because everybody was in. And that's what happened in Nehemiah's time. For 52 days, everybody jumps in. Everybody jumps in. And what do you know? Whether they're serving or fighting or trusting in the Lord, all of the above, new life was coming because people were ready and watching. And I think for me, what you see in Nehemiah 11 is, okay, guys, here are the people that I think is, this story is incredible, okay? As Jerusalem grew, it's kind of like, Drew, when you think of a big city, what happens over the course of time when a city grows? Like, where do people end up starting to live?
It just becomes a big sprawl.
It does.
It just goes outward.
And they just kind of keep moving out, don't they?
Yeah.
In Nehemiah 11, it started to happen like that. And so then they had to actually start voting and taking lots so that people would actually stay in the city. Does that make sense? And so things were looking good. Things were looking promising. We've done our job. But oh, by the way, I need some of you, this is going to sound weird, to sacrifice and stay in Jerusalem. And so that's what you're going to see in Nehemiah 11. But here's the beautiful part. Nehemiah was so organized and structured that he put all this together. We're going to talk about today, really, we're going to spend most of our time, honestly, on the leadership skills of Nehemiah. But he started to see what was happening. In fact, look at Nehemiah 11:1. It says, now the leaders of the people stayed in Jerusalem. Now look at this. The leaders of the people, so they stayed, right? Do you see that? They stayed in the heart of the city. And the rest of the people, they cast lots for 1 out of 10 to come and live in Jerusalem, the holy city, while the other 9/10 remained in their towns. Like, how weird would it be to build the city and then nobody lives there? That seems to be a problem. So now we have to cast lots, right? So that 1 out of 10 people are going to say, you know, I'm going to come and I'm going to take a risk and I'm actually going to live in this community. I don't know, every time I go to Israel, you know, every time I get out of the country and I get out into the northern Israel or, you know, the Sea of Galilee is so peaceful. It's so relaxing. But then when you get into Jerusalem, you're like, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. Like it's hopping, spiritually hopping. And so this is what's starting to take place. But now remember this, okay? This is what happened. And I love what Wiersbe says. Nehemiah knew a nation of Israel couldn't be strong as long as Jerusalem was weak. Nehemiah also implied that Jerusalem couldn't be strong when the people, unless the people weren't willing to sacrifice. So everything that they'd worked for, so then Nehemiah, he simply called upon the people, guys, I need some of you to live here. And so I love that here you have a visionary Nehemiah. Once it's quote unquote done and built, he's still not done. He recognizes what it means to govern over this area. And so in verse 2 of Nehemiah 11, it says, the people praised all of the men who volunteered to live in Jerusalem. Hooray! They're going to move. We're not. Like that's what I hear, right? They're excited for the people. And so then in verse 3, it then says, these are the heads of the province who stayed in Jerusalem. But in the villages of Judah, each lived on his own property in their towns, the Israelites, the priests, the Levites, the temple servants, and the descendants of Solomon's servants. So are you catching this? Everybody comes back to build it, rebuild it, put some structure together, and then they have to have volunteers to actually live there. Nehemiah needed people to say, we want change and we're going to live where we're going to see change. It's that Nadia's line, be the change, right? I mean, that's really, if you want to see change, you be the change. It's a great line, which means, guys, you got to get in the trenches. And so everybody's excited. We've got men that are saying, yes, we're going to volunteer, we're going to stay back. And then it says in verse 4, while some of the descendants of Judah and Benjamin settled in Jerusalem, here's the list of who it was. Judah's descendants, okay? And then it begins to actually go through this list of verses 4, 5, and 6, and then you'll see 468 at the end of verse 6, capable men that come from Judah's descendants, or also known as Perez's descendants. Okay, does that make sense? So you have 468, and then it gets into the Benjamin's descendants. So in verse 7 it says, these were Benjamin's descendants, and then that equaled, just so you know, in verse 8, 928. So these are the people that are saying, you know what, we're in. We're going to be the change in Jerusalem. And in verse 9 it says, Joel, son of Zichri, was the officer over them. And Judah, son of Hasanua, was second in command over the city. So these guys were overseeing Judah and Benjamin. Kevin, where's everybody else?
They were scattered because they were taken with
That's right. So these 10 quote-unquote lost tribes are elsewhere. That makes sense to everybody? Judah and Benjamin are back, and these guys are in charge over this community. So then here's what you're going to begin to see, and let me just say this. So in order to be the change, you have folks from Judah and Benjamin, right? And then you're going to get into verse 10, you're going to get into the priests. So the priests have their roles. And their roles, as it continues to go in, all the way it just says in verse 12, and their relatives who did the work at the temple, 822. But then as the list continues on, you're going to see in verse 13, there's 242. And then in verse 14, there's 128. And then it just continues on. And so then, besides the priests, again, you have the list of the Levites. So you have the Judah and Benjamites, the priests, then you have the Levites, and again, you're going to start seeing numbers. All of the Levites in verse 18 in the holy city is 284. Can I just tell you, when I hear the holy city, like my heart just stirs. Like I pray in Psalm 122 for the peace of Jerusalem. I pray for this city. And I think it's really unique that as I pray for this city, you have to picture, I wonder what the 284 Levites look like when they lived there. I wonder what these numbers of, the gatekeepers in verse 19. There's 172. Like these men and women played a unique role in preserving the city that was rebuilt. And here you have in Nehemiah 11 this process of what it looks like. And then it says in verse 20, the rest of Israel, the priests and the Levites were in all of the villages of Judah, each on his own inherited property. In other words, everybody else is everywhere else. That make sense? So everybody's here, and then these are where everybody else is. Now look in verse 21. Now all of a sudden you have the temple servants. So we're describing all of the numbers, right? Okay, and their role is to live in the holy city, Jerusalem. Scripture even says in verse 22, here are the leaders of the Levites in Jerusalem. So they start listing and describing these folks. And then in verse 23, it says, there was in fact a command of the king regarding them, an ordinance regulating the singers' daily tasks. And then it just continues on and it starts listing folks. And in fact, it even says in verse 24, Pethuah, son of Meshezabel, of the descendants of Zerah, son of Judah, was the king's agent in every matter concerning the people. And then it just says, look, as far as the farming settlements with their fields. And then what do you know? We begin to describe these components. And then it goes all the way down from Judah's descendants in verse 25. And verse 31, you have Benjamin's descendants. And as it continues on and it wraps up. And in fact, verse 35, just thought it'd be kind of fun. There's, oh no. Remember that? You remember when Sanballat and Tobiah, they tried to get Nehemiah to go to the valley of Onah? But here it is. And then it even says some of the Judean divisions of Levites were in Benjamin. Here's what I want to do with this text today. We have quite a bit of time, and I'm really excited about this. When I think of the book of Nehemiah, I think of my class with Howard Hendricks. I think of my time where I got to study and write about the qualities and characteristics of Nehemiah as a leader. When I get to this point of Jerusalem, and you have folks volunteering and they're casting lots for people to come in and preserve what's been restored, this is the hardest challenge. You know that, right? This is by far, in fact, if we talk about going into the city, what is the hardest challenge, Kevin?
Routing people the right ways.
It's the remnant. And they'll say, would you stay here? It's the remnant who say, you know what, we've seen God work. We saw God move in an incredible way. Now would you maintain what God is doing? It's hard to find the Judahs and the Benjamites. It's hard to find the priests, the Levites, the gatekeepers, the temple servants that say, you know what, I'm going to stay. But that's what chapter 11 is all about, sustainability within the community. And the only reason it happens, in my opinion, is that they trusted Nehemiah as a leader. They saw the value in God moving in his life and moving in Ezra's life. They saw this and they said, you know what, I'm in. Because we've seen from the very, very beginning of how God's used Nehemiah. We trust him in all of this. So what I want to do is I want to give, and there's a gentleman named Lovett Weems, okay? You like that name? Lovett Weems, W-E-E-M-S, Lovett Weems Jr., okay? And he has 10 leadership lessons from Nehemiah. And so one of the things, let's just say this, is first of all, the characteristics, and we'll see if we can fit 10 of these here on the board, is that number one of the things you'll see with Nehemiah is that God's leader responds to a call. So what you see here is, think about this, Kevin, if you go to Nehemiah 1, verse 4. Well, really, Nehemiah 1 through 4. Think about this. He hears the report, right, in verse 2 from Hanani. Hanani gives a report about Jerusalem, right? He talks about the exile. He talks about those that are coming from the remnant in verse 3. And they said, hey, by the way, it's a mess. Nehemiah clearly has been called, so much so that in verse 4, he's distraught over it. And so like all of this rebuilding, it was birthed out of something that came from the Lord, not because he said, I kind of would like to leave my environment. Let's go build a city. That's not how all of this started. In Nehemiah, as a characteristic of a leader, God's leader will always respond to a call. And in fact, can you go to Nehemiah 2, verse 12, Kevin? Nehemiah 2, verse 12. I like this component of this because how did this call happen? In Nehemiah 2, verse 12, just at the very end, it just says this, I got up at night and I took a few men with me. I didn't tell anyone what my God had laid on my heart to do for Jerusalem. That little line right there, my God laid on my heart to do for Jerusalem. Nehemiah didn't ask for this. Who gave this to him? God. So to me, God's leader will always respond to a call that comes from the Lord. Number 2, let's go there if we can. God's leader, and this is really important. So as you see a call here take place, you're going to always see that God's leader, cares for the people and their situation. So once the call happens, then you're going to actually see true heart behind this. In fact, if you go to Nehemiah 2, verse 17, Nehemiah listened to his people. He understood this so much so that you're going to see language of, and I love this, he said, come, let's rebuild Jerusalem's wall so that we will no longer be a disgrace. You see the whole trouble we are in. Nehemiah is equating this whole issue with him and the people. And so he's saying, guys, I'm actually in this. And look what he says. This is some serious trouble we are in. God actually will send a leader that will care for the people and the situation. Hey, by the way, did you know that your neighborhood is like one of the worst counties for heroin addicts? Well, so what? The mentality is that the pastor or the leader or the elder or the deacon or the person that just somebody that would lead and go do this. Does that make sense? You can't just talk about a situation. A true leader will actually understand and care and go into that situation. I love this story of Nehemiah because I think it's such a practical illustration about how we can see a move of God. All right, let's keep going here with one of the leadership lessons by Lovett Weems. Gotta love the name, don't you? But I love his characteristics that he's described. God's leader, helps, this is such a good one for me. I love this one. Helps define the reality of the situation. A good leader will actually recognize, hey, life's a mess right now. They're not prideful. They're not arrogant. They're like, Dallas is good. We don't need revival. We're fine. No. To me, a good leader will actually say, you know what? We do need a move of God. Have you not gone down 2nd Ave? Have you not gone down Waterview? Have you not gone, fill in the blank, whatever it is. There are people that desperately need the Lord. And when you define the reality of the situation as Nehemiah does, people will jump in. Peter sang, I don't know, Drew, I feel like you would know this guy, but I don't know. He says this, nothing is more limiting to a group than the inability to talk about the truth. Oh man, you should see this neighborhood. Oh, never mind, I can't talk about it. Like, you should have freedom, and a good leader will allow that environment. Like, hey guys, we got to work on some things. Like, that's what we're after. They define the reality of the situation. Like, let's not hide from the fact that America needs a revival. Like, we need a move of God. Martin Luther King Jr. came in and led in the most unique, incredible way that our nation has never seen before. And what's so disheartening is so much of his work that he has done. I feel like sometimes when we look in society today, I feel like this race card is like, it's like everybody's just fighting each other. Like, we need a move of God, so let's just say it. It's not good right now. It's not because I'm against one person or for another. It's just we need help. And a good leader will always define the reality of the situation. Okay, number 4. I like this one. God's so going to run out of room. God's direction and vision, right, are sought by the leader, here it is, and people. God's direction and vision are sought by the leader and the people. Really what that means is, like, this has to come from the Lord, and we have to seek the Lord for this direction. Never once, I don't think, Kevin, Clayton, or Drew, did we see Nehemiah saying, you know what, this seems good to me, I'm going to do this myself. He was constantly praying. The king asked him a question, and what does he do? He's praying. Like, what do I say? Oh yeah, I'm going to ask for a litter. Like, over and over again, God's direction and vision are sought by the leader and the people. Like, we're constantly seeking Him. Which then really leads to number 5, and just kind of what we've been talking about. Prayer is essential to know God's will. I don't really know if we need to get into that anymore, just for the simple fact of what? That's all he did. It started in Nehemiah 1:4. He was on his face, he's praying, he's mourning, he's weeping. Eventually down the road in Nehemiah, people are putting dust on their head and they're doing the same thing. Prayer is essential to know God's will, which then leads us to number 6. Number 6 is that, and I love this one, and I'm trying to get better at this. God's vision is simple. What do you think? Clayton, we'll go to you. Kevin, you can jump in if you want. What do you think was God's vision for Nehemiah? What was it?
To make a difference.
It was to make a difference. Okay, how are they going to make a difference? Kevin, what do they have to do?
I think that it's a restoration of the city.
Restoration of the city. Drew, you want to add anything to that? What was God's vision for Nehemiah? I think you're all right.
I don't know, to put things back to rights the way they were.
All of these are right.
But not the one you're looking for.
To rebuild.
I know how teachers do it.
You're right. All of this is right. Make a difference. Kevin, what did you say? Restore the city.
Restore the city.
Drew?
Make things right.
Make things right.
Kind of sounds like Donald Trump.
Originally was.
It's just to rebuild. It's just to rebuild the wall. Okay. That's not hard. That's simple. Here's the deal. That actually makes me feel better. Because, why? Because it needs to be as simple as it can. And so, like, when we even work with Time Revive, we just want to equip the saints to get ready for His return. Like, that's our role, to equip the saints so that the bride is ready for His return. God's vision that He laid on Nehemiah's heart, rebuild the wall.
I contend that I said to make things back the way it was, which is...
Okay. Kevin, you want to argue your comment?
No, Drew's struggling with being right.
Okay, so look, these are leadership characteristics of Nehemiah. Why are we going through this today? Because here you have a remnant from Judah and Benjamin, priests, Levites, gatekeepers, temple servants, that are actually going to be carrying out the vision and all of the infrastructure that Nehemiah has laid in place And so he has to depend upon the remnant to get this. And so like for me, I just think it's kind of cool. Like they wouldn't be doing this if they didn't realize that Nehemiah said, this is really a bad situation. I need you guys to come back. I need you to not leave the situation. Oh yeah. Remember we couldn't leave the wall earlier because it doesn't looking good? Let's trust Nehemiah. He says we need to come back. I'm in. When you're consistent in your leadership, people will jump in. And you're going to have some people that come and go. That's fine. As long as you stay the course of what he's asked you to do. And that's very clear with what you see with Nehemiah. Nehemiah does not back down. Interesting, Drew, you made a comment, with Revive School, and we were talking about understanding the Word. As we were doing Revive School, though, do you feel like we've changed our vision, though?
Do I feel like we've changed our vision? I don't know.
Here's why I asked the question.
You could say, if it's ultimately to make God known or whatever and to make disciples, then I would, no.
Anyway, it's good just to sound this out, sometimes as we move forward to that vision, it just might look differently, but the vision never changes. Right. Yeah. And I think that's what I see with the remnant. Some of this is changing. Like, what do you mean? We're not rebuilding the wall right now. Like, this is not what we were asked to do, but we're here to stay. So like it feels like it's still the same goal, and yet at the same time, their roles are different. That makes sense? And these guys are like, I'm in. I'm going to do this even though this is the harder part. I'm going to actually come in and continue to maintain this role. And so in number 7, okay, God's leader builds a team. I think it's fair to say Nehemiah, at this point, he has gained the trust of the team. In fact, Kevin, if you'll go to Nehemiah, let's see if it's chapter 2, verse 18. Yeah, so look what he says. He says, I told them how the gracious hand of my God had been on me and what the king had said to me, and they said, let's start rebuilding. And they were encouraged to do this good work, this common work. And so it was kind of like from the very beginning, Nehemiah had this incredible understanding. In fact, Kevin, do you have that one map with all of the gates? Do you remember that one? In Nehemiah 3, where they talk about this. The only way that this is possible, okay, is, how is this possible? Kevin, all of these people are who? Do you remember?
They're the people that have come back or stayed in the exiles, and it's families working on the wall.
It's families that are working on this section. Men of Jericho, goldsmiths and merchants, Malchijans, Meshulams, Hananiah, Shemaiah, Zadoks, priests, Tekoites, Binuites, Ezers. I think you get the point. This doesn't happen, you guys, unless God is using a leader like Nehemiah to build a team. Like, you just don't do this unless they trust Nehemiah to saying, you know what, let's go rebuild. And so all of these characteristics, like he's not inconsistent with what God's been asking him to do. And in fact, what I love is that all of the talents that God is giving in Nehemiah 3, they're exercising them in such a way that they're fulfilling their role to help rebuild the city. Isn't that like the body of Christ? Kevin, you might have an incredible gift with logistics, and Clayton, you might have an incredible gift with, media component, or Drew, you might have the creativity and the people skills, and yet, I might play a different role, but all of us together allow this thing to come together. It makes it happen. And so to me, these are the leadership qualities that Nehemiah exemplified. They are not exhaustive at all. Just a couple more here. We're going to wrap it up with 3 more. So 8, it just says, God's leader this is kind of fun, keeps the real purpose before the people. Kevin, what do you think that means? God's leader keeps the real purpose before the people.
So the leader actually helps those around him see what the purpose is, and doesn't try to hide what's going on and why they're doing things. So when they ask questions, he or she's able to give a direct answer to why they're doing it.
He's pretty honest about it. He's like, hey, by the way, there's enemies coming. But here's the purpose for what we're doing. Like, everything just seems to be out on the table. And I think for me, one of the weirdest things that I'm seeing in a weird trend is like, it's like we need to be more transparent. Like, I feel like some of the trend is like, we don't have to disclose some of our junk. We don't have to reveal who we are or something. Like, God's leader is really just going to be like, man, this is who I am. You either like it or you don't. And can we run together or we don't? And Nehemiah, I feel like, is never hiding anything. In fact, Drew, we even talked about hide and seek. He didn't even want to go hide in the temple. Like, he was so afraid to like be known as a guy that runs and flees, like even physically, let alone emotionally. God's leader truly keeps the purpose before the people. All right, we got 2 more. You guys are doing great. Just hopefully this encourages you in your own life. Like, how do I do these things with my family? How do I do these things in Sunday school? How do I do this at business with 10 employees or 30 employees or 400 employees? Well, number 9 is that God's leader, this is a great one, and I think this will be very fitting for what we've been talking about, is not discouraged by adversity. Kevin, give me an example of adversity with Nehemiah. What has he seen?
The guys around him, all the governors, they do just about everything to come out and tell him to stop building the wall.
Yeah. And like, they make fun of him, they question him, they ridicule him, they call them the feeble Jews, they mock them, they do it 4 times, they do it 5 times, they like want them constantly to compromise. Like, you just can't get discouraged by this. Remember what G. Campbell Morgan says, you hear it, you just kind of let it blow off, and you just quietly keep doing the work. And number 10, I think you'll see why this all fits into where we're going with today, with the remnant. God always has another vision. Think about this. The original vision was what? To rebuild the wall. But the reality is this wall's been rebuilt. So part of his role as a leader is to say, hey guys, now that we've rebuilt it, guys, we need to shift, and I need everybody to be like, how can we take care of it now? And so God always has another vision that builds upon what he's already established. And so the remnant have this chance to be a part of a new vision, this chance to walk out what they have already started. It goes back to Nadia's little phrase, be the change. This remnant, Judah, Benjamin, priests, Levites, gatekeepers, and temple servants, had a chance to be the change. Why? Because they saw Nehemiah do it. They saw Nehemiah ultimately be the leader that says, I'm going to be the change. I'm willing to go. Will you join me in this whole process? It's a fun journey to see Jerusalem being rebuilt and be established as a holy city. I just encourage you guys, just even today, please don't stop praying for the peace of Jerusalem. What was established back then, God still has a purpose for when the Messiah comes back to establish that city as the heavenly city. All right, guys, have a great day. And what do you know? We'll talk to you tomorrow with Nehemiah 12 and 13. Thanks.